Today we're going to be changing the rear brake lines, the flexies on a Clio MK1. Fairly straightforward. Some hella flexies going on. These bad boys weren't cheap. But I'll just show you what one's doing. I've already loosened these off a little bit. Yeah, just everywhere. 11 mils. Obviously a WD-40 decent, give them a wire brushing before I started loosening them off, just to make life a million times easier. The only thing with changing the flexies on these from the rubbers to the helis is these, well, not clamps, spacers are a bit looser. So what I'm going to do is, once I've got this side changed for the new one, I'm just going to pinch it either side with some grips, just to put more of an angle on it, and then it'll just pack it out and you won't be able to rattle. On the fronts I have actually made stainless steel ones that are taller, but for what it's worth on the back I'm not going to bother. I'm just, like I say, I'm just going to crimp them up a bit, and hopefully they'll go tight enough to not rattle at all. So this one is pretty much ready to come off, but these have never been off by the looks of it, so I struggled on the other side to actually get the flexi. To actually get the flexi to come out of this insert bit here where it goes in. Bit of a tap. I'm not hitting it hard, I'm literally giving it a tap. I'm actually going to do this with the hammer. I'll put you there for a second. Hopefully you can still see. All I'm going to do is just get my screwy in this side, not damaging the thread. Just give it a bit of gentle persuasion. Coming through there. So don't be damaging your thread on your brake fitting, because you'll regret it afterwards. I already had to change one yesterday on the front. Ain't no work on, does it? It's awkward, we can't really get anything. It's like a wheelie in there. So we've got a small wire wheel. Just to make sure you've got something down if you're bothered about the surface that you're working on. Brake fluid's one of the worst for stripping paint off, so yeah, just put a rag down. I don't need to in here too much, I'm not too fussed. It needs a new coat of paint on the floor. What I'm going to do is just work around it. See if we can get rid of that side. Should be a bit better. Yeah, right, we've got a bit of a rock on now. That's better. So with a rock we can obviously start working the debris. There she goes. And then it's going to be a similar side. Similar thing on this side. I'll just double check that that's with my drill so there's no brake fluid dripping onto it. I'll just make sure completely loose on that side. I'll do this a bit differently. I'm going to hit the back of this. I'm going to give it a bit of a WD. Get this screwy. I'm going to come in like this with this one. Be careful, leave brackets on. the strongest. Do a little bend. I'll do a full brake rebleed, so it's not an issue, the fact that it's going everywhere. I'd rather, there's nothing I can clamp, you know, to stop the fluid coming through. I could empty the reservoir maybe, but it's going to come through no matter what's in the pipe, and at least this way I'm getting all the old brake fluid out that's probably a bit more spongy. It gets moisture in the brake fluid, and that's what makes it bad more than anything. And the stuff that I took out the front yesterday was black. It's an awkward one to get to, this. Might be easier if I had that wheel off, but I'm inside, so I'll struggle a bit more to get the wheel off. It will go, it'll just need a bit of persuading. Yeah, she's getting ready to go work, yeah. Yeah, she's working. Just keep working top and bottom. Yeah, there she goes. And there's our flexi. Oh! Clean this brake fluid off our hands. It's not very good for your skin. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing there. Might be a bit better. It all needs under sealing under here. It's a bit rusty and a bit dirty, and all my heat wrap come off the exhaust, so I had to just cut here the last MOT so we didn't fail it. So I need to wrap pretty much the whole exhaust again. It does help. It makes it sound better as well. Getting that back box warm, it seems to give it a pop and a fart a bit more. I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna stick that in, making sure there's tension on the screw bit. There we go. So that should just thread in nice and easy. Obviously don't cross thread it, you'll regret that, because you might ruin obviously the female side on the new Hella Flexi, and then you can ruin the male side on the actual brake line fitting. Either or, it's both a shit thing to do. Obviously it's 11 on this side and 14 on this side, and I'm not going to line that spacing plate up yet. I just want to make sure. See, I don't like the feel of that. It just feels a bit too tight already. Could be alright actually. Yeah, that's spot on. That is threading in and out alright. Tells me it's not too bad. Just make sure the plate is located properly. Go on with me 11. I'm gonna go clockwise with the brake line, with the flexi, sorry. obviously there's not much room here, so very small rotations, but I could have, well, I was going to just do the front, and then I learned that with the pressures being differently, you can actually, if you put braided, uprated on the front and not on the rear, you can actually blow the rears, apparently. That's what I've been told. So I'm doing the rears as well, for what it's worth. And obviously it came with a kit, fronts and rears. Yeah. And then we get it nice and tight. And it's the same again, it will rattle because that plate's just not quite packed enough. And then we'll move to this top one. What I'm doing, I just want to make sure the fitting's going right to the end of the pipe. Things get a bit rusty, these fittings don't just slide like you'd like them to. They're a bit tighter. I'm going to come and insert that. There we go. Yeah, and again, don't be cross-threading these. You regret it if you do. I'm just going to put it on there. Yeah, it's nice. It's going in smoothly. I'm not having to put a load of pressure on it. I know it's not cross-threading because of that reason. You can always tell just by looking at something whether it's cross-threading or not, to be honest with you. It's only when you don't have a visual that you struggle, I think, with cross-threading. People like to put things together with power tools. You should always start threads with your fingers and not with power tools. See it with people all the time. Wheel nuts is one of the worst ones, and they just go straight into the hub with the stud or the bolt. I'm happy with that. Yet again, it is one of them where it does need tightening up. So like I say, I'll just compress these two areas here. Oh. What I'll do is I just want to clean all the excess brake fluid off these, so I can see if it leaks when I start bleeding. So some brake cleaner, don't need an excessive amount. And it does help protect the paint if obviously your paint's on your rear subframe's any good. Mine's not, so I'm not too fussed. But leaving brake fluid on is just going to strip that paint off whatever it goes onto if you don't remove it and clean it properly. So you don't want to do that. I'm happy with that now. So I'm going to get some grips and see if I can compress them to take that slack and that movement out. Obviously you can see that's moving. That's quite a bad one. That's not too bad, and it's going to be the same with that. That's quite tight. It still needs compressing a little bit though. So we'll get that done now. Oh, I'll tell you what, we'll remove some of these tools and then we can give everything a wipe down. There we go. First thing, this. Get as much of that as I can. Get the final light down. I'm not too fussed about the floor paint, it needs redoing anyway. But you know, you can put a towel down, you can even put a tray down and catch it all in a tray. I'm just not too fussed about that. some adjustable grips. This is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do, this will only work if you compress both sides. So I'm just going to get either side and pinch at the bottom where the feet are. There we go. So that one's nice and tight now, just from compressing that. I'll do the same with this one now. There we go, that one's tight. Do the same with this one. That one's nice and tight. I'm going to struggle with this one. I might, oh no, I might have to do this with the wheel off. Perfect. So just by compressing these, as you can see with that one, I know it doesn't look overly pretty, but it stopped most of the movement in that. That can still move a little bit. I might try and do that one a bit more actually. There we go, there we go, there we go, there we go. So they're all nice and tight now. They cannot move, and that's what we don't want. You know, if something's vibrating, it's gonna wear, and you don't want wear, especially in your brakes. It won't be a very ideal thing. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna get out and I'm gonna get some white grease. I'm just gonna spray them on the fittings, because a lot of the zinc coating that comes with these on the brake line fittings is actually come off. Now I've cleaned all the rust away with my wire wheel. So now we just want to protect things. So that one's protected. That one's protected. That one's done. And then this last one is protected. So, jobs are good. And now all we've got to do is bleed the rear brakes. So, I'm not going to take the wheels off because we've got it jacked up. I can see the bleed nipples there, just to the right of the cylinder there. That's your bleed nipple there. So I've got a gravity kit that I made myself. So just to make life a bit easier, I'll get set up for that, and then we'll go from there. Right, I thought I was recording then, but I wasn't, so I've just been talking to myself for the last 10 minutes. Right, so what I've done is I've cracked off the 8mm nipple here, and then once it started showing signs of fluid, I've then put my bleeder on, my homemade bleeder, and this is a pipe, goes through here, and then it's about 5mm off the bottom, and that's so it can't draw air back through. It always has to be lower than the fluid line. There's a hole in the top of this cap to release any pressure, and the way this works is I don't need a second person. I can literally just leave this here. I can go in the vehicle and pump the brake through. It'll push all the air out and it won't draw any air back in because this pipe is within the fluid. So if you've not got someone to help you bleed brakes, this is obviously the best method. They do kits that go on airlines and all sorts now, but yeah, I just think they're a bit unnecessary really, when you can do it as simple as this. Obviously you want to make sure that your reservoir has got fluid in it. I know it has. It is about bang on, so I can put more in that, so I'll rest that down. That's at the maximum level. Bear in mind, we're going to be bleeding loads through right now. I want to take any dirty fluid out, and I want nice clean fluid that won't be spongy. Older fluid can get moisture in it, which creates a sponginess to it. So I'll just get some fluid. So what I'm using is a lid off a spray can, because I don't need to be putting loads in at any one time. I'm just going to move all this out of the way. I'm going to pinch it, and then I'm going to pour it, and I just want to make sure I don't overfill this, because like I say, if you get any of this on your paint and you don't clean it, it is going to bubble it off. It's going to strip it like a paint stripper. So obviously you can tell this Clio isn't a standard Clio Mark 1. It's got the Renault 5 GT turbo in, nice big turbo, external wastegate, HKS dump valve, it's electronic boost controlled, charge cooled, so it's not an intercooler, it's a charge cooler. A charge cooler has its own separate water supply for cooling, or antifreeze, or just coolant, whatever you want to call it. But I rate it for things like this because it keeps temperatures down so much. I do run water met as well, just to stop pre-det. I literally got the smallest jet you can possibly get on it because I don't want to flood the intake. I don't want to cause problems. I did have a bigger jet on it when I got the kit, and it was just too much. It'd bog down when it'd kick in, it just bogged right down. So I've got the finest jet you can get. It's going to stop pre-det, and it's going to keep my engine running cleaner and cooler. So it's more of a safety feature for me, the water met. It's just there to keep it that little bit cooler. I'm not EFI, I'm not running on an ECU, you know, so it's one of them where I can't put it into the map or anything like that. I don't think it'll cause many problems if it's just goes empty or stops working. I don't think then it'd give me problems where if it was tuned into the map, if it had a ECU, it would give me problems, you know. So yeah, it's just a safety feature for me on this. Right, where were we? So we're cracked off, we have got fluid in the reservoir, and we're all set up. So all we literally need to do really is get in and bleed. Now this is going all the way down to the bottom, so I know that it's doing its job. See, if that nipple wasn't open fully, it wouldn't let me go all the way down. Click there. I've given this quite a few pumps now, so I just want to go and check. It's not leaking everywhere. It's not pushed an excessive amount through yet, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to loosen this nipple a tiny bit more. Is it going to let me do it with my fingers? Nope. So, okay, spanner up here, could do with a torch, could do some lumens on the situation. What I'm going to do is, I'm just going to, I've just done that a quarter of a turn. I'm going to give it another quarter if I can get my spanner on it. Right, so that's another quarter. So it is finger loose now, the bleed nipple. It's still a bit tight, it was letting things through, don't get me wrong, but just giving it an extra couple of threads will make it easier. I know it's noisy, this, it's old. I'm going past where it's been pushed for a very long time. When you're breaking it on, it probably goes down to that click. So I'm assuming that click's got something to do with wear. And it's just because it never gets pushed down that far unless it's being bled. That's the situation. Right, so I've been in there for 5 minutes. Bear in mind, when I started, this was probably about up to there, and now this is how much fluid that I've drawn out. So I've been pumping from the foot pedal and then just checking the reservoir. Didn't go too low to suck any fresh air in. So now, before I do anything, I want to tighten that nipple up, because not because it can draw air in. Without that pedal being pushed, it can't really do anything. It's more the fact that I don't want it dripping down the back of the drum. So I'm gonna get my spanner in there. I'm gonna give it a nip. There we go. Right, that's nice and tight. Remove that. Oof. God, we're spilling that everywhere. Look at the colour of that though. So yeah. Bear in mind that new fluid is transparent. It's still kind of transparent, it's just very mucky. It's probably got moisture in it, and the moisture obviously, it's a different consistency as water, the brake fluid, so it'll compress more. So I'll go back, and I just want to make sure that is, yep, that's nipped enough. Right, so I'm going to empty my ball and we will do the other side. Right, so I have sprayed the nipple, cracked it off with an 8mm spanner, and then I have put on my bleeder. Obviously you can see there's probably a bit more than 10mm in the bottom now. That is actually bleeding through a bit, that's coming through on its own. It is filling up. I can see air being pushed out of there. I do want to go and work the pedal regardless, and top up the reservoir to make sure there's enough fluid in there so we can't draw any air through the line, because we do not want that. One thing I've noticed is I don't like how close this is sitting to this bracket here. This bracket actually holds the frame for the spare wheel, which I do not put under here. Just keeps it lighter, and yeah, it's just a lightning thing, but yeah, that needs to be out of the way a little bit. I don't know I'm going to do it yet, but I will. I just don't like that. I don't want that catching. The other thing is, if I can't get it to move out of the way, I will put something on it around there, a piece of rubber, just so if it does touch it, it doesn't ruin it. Right, so let's bleed this and then we will go from there.